All right, ready to get started. Welcome to Secret Women's Business, simple strategies to increase profit in your business. The idea of today is to give you one or two good ideas. By nature, I'm not sure that we can act on multiple good ideas at any one time. So hopefully by the end, you'll find something that you can use that will change what you do in your business. There's also probably a lot of the info today that you've heard before, but reinforcement's good. So if it is something that you've heard before and you've not actioned it, then I hope you will start. Oh, we've got people popping onto the call everywhere. Hi, Lisa. Today, we're going to cover the following topics: identifying time leaks within your business, using your time more effectively, simple cost effective ways to increase profit, how to gain more profit from your existing customers. And in hindsight, that probably should have been two different webinars, one on increasing profit and one on time management, but I didn't do it that way. So I hope I don't overload your brains too much today. Remember that there'll be the recording available. So if you find it all a little bit too fast, you can watch the recording later. I've tried as much as possible to customize what you're learning today to the group we have. The majority of attendees we have been in business for longer than 3 years, so no doubt there are some bad habits lurking around. We've also got a real mixed bag when it comes to business type. We've got everything from photographers and recruiters to virtual assistants, and we've got one cheeky attendee on the line who listed their business as taking naked self-portraits. So thank you for that, Lisa. We've got 100% female attendance, which is hardly shocking given the nature of the webinar. So let's get stuck in. So there's no such thing as being too busy. If you really want something, you'll make time for it. How true is that quote? The only missing component here is to know what it is that you want first. And that's where we fail straight away. Often we lack goals, and without the goals or knowledge of what it is you want to achieve, most people just waste time. So, where are you wasting time in your business? Let's have a look at a few of the common time wasters, and I'm sure you'll identify with at least one, if not more. There's probably 5 or 6 there that I can certainly identify with. Lengthy meetings. Meetings are a classic time void. When you put multiple people with vastly different agendas together in a same room or on a call, it's easy to completely lose track of time. So challenge yourself to compress your meetings. If you'd normally schedule an hour, book in 45 minutes. And don't forget to distribute an agenda beforehand and insist that everybody sticks to that agenda. Don't allow meetings to constantly go over time, and don't waste the time you have between meetings. If you're like me and you sell your time in hour blocks, then you'll quickly find time leaks between meetings. And I am willing to admit that I am the absolute worst at this. Whenever you're booking meetings, try and book them close together so you've got a reason to move on to the next meeting quickly and you don't have a couple of hours there where you're just sitting around doing nothing. Task avoidance. So this is good old procrastination. Nothing makes you move slower than just plain not wanting to do something. So when that something is on your to-do list, it clogs up the whole system, particularly if it's the first thing on your to-do list. You'll find just about everything else to fill the time as opposed to getting through what's on that list. So watch for signs of task avoidance and either take care of that item or ditch it entirely. Dreading a task burns up a lot more mental energy than you realize. If you want a great book to read, it's Eat That Frog, and basically it means getting your most difficult task done first. Don't go looking for the easy stuff. Give yourself a challenge. I'm actually starting a challenge on May 1st because I am not a good person for eating the frog, so to speak. So within that challenge, it will be 30 days. Every day, we're going to be circling the job that you least want to do or the one that you find most difficult on your to-do list. And you're going to commit to doing it first every single day. I'm going to give it a try and honestly believe that my days will become less stressful and I won't procrastinate in as much. So if you're a procrastinator and you want to eat the frog with me every day in the month of May, then make sure you join me on Facebook. We might get a bit of public accountability happening there where we get people to actually post what their frog is for the day. Next on the list is clunky processes. So examine your internal systems and processes. For ones that are loaded down with unnecessary steps, aim to streamline and pare processes down to the absolute bare minimum. Audit your internal systems and processes on a regular basis. And if you're having trouble finding the flaws yourself, get someone else to take a look from the outside with a fresh pair of eyes. Basically, stop overcomplicating stuff. The next one, and this is one that I am guilty of, is fake work projects. So it sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? Fake work, but nothing eats up time faster than fake work. And this is because fake work projects closely resemble actual work. So we can easily fool ourselves into thinking that we're being productive. Anything that doesn't move you closer to your core business objective can be fake work. And common fake work examples are cleaning up your desk or reorganizing your files or checking emails constantly, which I've got a few of my clients on the call, and you know that that's my number one hate. And redoing anything. So I've got a client who recently redid their entire filing system for no good purpose other than they got to use their fancy little label maker. So that's what we consider to be fake work. Bad or stupid technology is a complete time suck as well. The irony of modern day technology is it's supposed to save us time, but often it does just the opposite. It's a function of having too many fancy functions and not having enough user knowledge to use them, which I'm guilty of as well. Figure out how to optimize and streamline your use of your key technologies. That means learning the shortcut keys or investigating advanced functions, sometimes delegating or hiding unnecessary functions. Often it can be getting somebody to come in and teach you how to use whatever the piece of technology is. So that you can use it quickly and efficiently straight off the bat, and you're not wasting time trying to figure it out for yourself. Email overload. Email is like technology in that it's both useful and really distracting. The best approach to avoiding the time vortex of emails is to maintain a zero inbox standard. Now, I think that that's probably a big call, and I struggle to keep my inbox at zero, but it's a great place to try and start. So that means no messages left in your inbox at the end of the day. Use your email program's built in automatic sorting tools to funnel your daily assortment of newsletters and junk. And get into the habit of quickly scanning and filing the FYI emails. I hate FYI emails. Often they just clog up your inbox. And then break the habit of keeping e-newsletters in your inbox in case you want to read them later. The simple fact is you won't. They'll just sit there and they'll have unprotected sex with all of your other emails, and all of a sudden you'll have a litter of damn emails sitting in your inbox. Manual anything is next on the list. Thankfully, there's an app, widget, or gadget to do just about everything in business now, from creating reports to populating your social media profiles with content. So, wherever possible, stop relying on those manual processes. If you do it more than once, then find a way to automate all of it or at least part of it. And then, last, and once again, I'm a big offender of this, is social time. Um, Quite embarrassed that I've got a couple of clients on the phone, on the call, because they're well aware of my issue with social time as well. We're all social animals, and whether it's the water cooler or social media, we often give in to the temptation to chit chat. The challenge is that some of this is necessary. It's how you build relationships and develop the team spirit in your business, but you need to pay attention. And when relationship building turns into idle chit chat, get yourself and your team back on track. Here at Agent 99 HQ, it's just me and Agent K9, my dog, so I tend not to waste a whole lot of time talking to him. The phone, though, is my weapon of choice when it comes to wasting valuable time, so watch how much time you're spending on the phone as well. Here's another great quote. I really like this one. A wise person does at once what a fool does at last. So both are doing the same thing. They're just doing them at different times. And I like to relate this one back to sales within a business. For me, I think a wise business owner will always do at once what generates an income in the business, and the fool will do it, but they will leave it until last, usually when they're not as effective. So, now some tips to help you use your time more effectively. Identify the tasks that you'll achieve that will help you achieve your goals and allocate time to them accordingly. So that means not giving a heap of time to a task that's going to get you nowhere. My client that redid their filing system, that was a perfect example of that. The filing system worked perfectly. It just had some grotty looking labels. Relabeling that filing system was not getting her any closer to her goals. Get any small, urgent tasks out of the way first. We use a whole lot of headspace stressing about these types of tasks. And if you're not a paper and pen person, often you're trying to store them all up in your memory and you're constantly reminding yourself of all of these tasks that you've got to do. So you want to make sure that you get those out of the way as soon as possible so then they're not clogging up your brain. Delegate work if other people can do it as well or more quickly, cheaply, or effectively than you can. Be cautious about assuming that no one will do a task as well as you. While that might be the case, you need to ask yourself if it really makes any difference. I've worked with clients that refused to delegate to staff as the staff would not complete the task exactly the same way that they did. But at the end of the day, who's really going to notice? If your customers are not going to notice, then is it really that important? Ensure other people know what they need to achieve in your business. If you're working to deadlines, then make sure that you do communicate that with others. Women are horrible at doing this. Often we say to somebody when they're doing a task for us, get it done whenever you can, whenever it fits in. And then we get a bit pissed off when something isn't done to our deadlines. It's a little bit passive aggressive. So, regardless of if you're working with employees or you're outsourcing, just make sure you verbalize your needs. Tackle tasks one day at a time. I absolutely hate multitasking. I'm a firm believer that it kills productivity. So stick to one task and finish it instead of trying to do three things at once. Because generally, when you're doing three things at once, you get absolutely nothing achieved. And finally, as I just referenced, eat the frog, do the worst job first. Now, I'm going to attempt my poll here. So, quick question there. How many of you have read that book, Eat the Frog? No. Okay. That was quick. 100% no. Okay. We might look at doing a bit of a giveaway on that one because it is a fantastic book. The premise behind it is if you eat a frog first thing in the morning, that's probably the worst thing you're going to have to do all day. So you may as well get it over and done with really quickly. All right, so moving on to setting deadlines. When you set deadlines for your activities, you need to be realistic. Make sure your deadlines are fixed or flexible and schedule work to suit you. So, with long term projects, set interim deadlines and then a final deadline. Allow time for contingencies, so for things going wrong. And that might mean that somebody you've outsourced part of the project to might be running behind, or maybe staff have got a big workload on. So, the longer the project, the more contingency time or leeway you're going to need. And decide whether your deadlines are fixed or flexible. Don't allow work, particularly less important work, to take longer than it should. If 10 minutes is all a job is worth, then make sure it is done in 10 minutes. And schedule your work to suit your temperament at different times of the day or the week. So, an example of that is if you're best in the late morning, schedule your customer calls at that time when you're at your absolute best. I know for myself, I don't write well during the day. I'm better off writing, blog writing, or recording videos in the afternoon. So that makes up part of my work schedule, is that those things are always set in the diary for that later part of the day. Next, we move on to routine and systems. Establish written procedures for dealing with all of the common events so you can delegate routine tasks wherever possible. So, an example of this is to develop clear systems that others can follow for handling things like sales queries or logging your customer contacts, answering sort of general queries from customers or clients, processing sales and invoicing, all of those sorts of routine things that you do every day in your business. Arrange procedures for monitoring performance until you're certain the tasks are being performed efficiently. So make sure that once you put those procedures in place, you actually monitor how much time it's taken and make sure that you are doing it most efficiently. Once your systems are established, you should be able to stop worrying about a lot of things, which is going to once again free up a little bit of headspace for you. It also stops your staff, your employees, from reinventing the wheel every time that they try and do something as well. The other upside to that is if you hire new employees, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time training them because your systems and processes are already there for them to follow. Build any unpleasant or long term tasks into your routine. So, an example of this would be automatically calling late payers the week a bill becomes overdue. Or if you have to monitor a project, make sure everybody knows you'll want progress feedback at the same time every week. If you're building that routine into those unpleasant tasks, you've got less chance of skipping over them. And, let's be honest, nobody wants to make those horrible calls where you're debt collecting people. How many people, here's another little poll for you. How many people actually have a set routine that they follow each week? And bearing in mind, I've got a couple of my clients on the call, so it'd be, hmm, that's interesting. We've got a few people, looks like a few of my clients are not following their set routines. I think a set routine is extremely valuable within a business. I like to refer to it as having your perfect week. And your perfect week is the structure of the week that you would use and you would replicate as much as possible to ensure that you're not skipping over any of those important tasks. Moving on to avoiding information overload. So, with information overload, often I print out something very similar for my clients to stick on their office walls because I find that we're all subject to a bit of information overload. When dealing with the bulk amount of information that comes into your business daily, I'll give you some golden rules, which is to act on it. If the information is relevant and important to your business, you need to act on it quickly. This obviously means things like sales, potential customers, or great opportunities to grow your business. If the information is important and relevant, then don't let it sit around in your inbox or your in tray while you deal with the less important stuff. Delegate it. It's not so easy, obviously, if you work on your own, but still a valuable lesson in managing information. If it's relevant but less important, could you delegate it to somebody else? The third one is file it. If the information is relevant but it's not immediately important, then you can file it, but make sure that it doesn't just sit in a file for the next 3 months. Schedule time in your week to reassess the information, and if it's still relevant, then do something about it. Often with clients, we'll go through the files of things that they believe are important. And I've just been told by Lisa to close my poll. Thanks, Lisa. um, Often we'll file things away. We think that they're relevant, but by the time you get around to looking at it, you may find that maybe it's not so important to keep it around. And finally, bin anything that's not relevant nor important. This is a great rule to keep if you're signed up to newsletters. If the information is not relevant to you today, then bin it immediately and be wary of keeping information that might be relevant at some time in the future because chances are you'll forget you ever filed it away. Simple, cost effective ways to increase your profit now that you've found more time. And I hope by listening to that first part of the presentation, you've got an understanding of why time and profit are so closely linked. Once you've found more time, hopefully we can find some ways to increase your profit for you. First thing, and this is a great little printout that I have on my wall. that I think everybody should have. For every task that you're doing, you should be asking yourself, is this an income producing task? If it isn't, then should you be doing it? Your day needs to be made up of a good mix of income producing and non income producing activities. The non income producing should be set aside to the times in the day when you're less likely to be able to contact your customers, or maybe when you're not feeling as bright and sparkly as you might be at other times of the day. I work with a lot of clients in the wholesale industry who sell to retail stores. One of the fastest ways we're able to increase their average sale was to correctly time their sales calls each day. Calling around lunchtime produced really low orders as the customers were busy with their customers, and they're usually trying to grab a bite to eat themselves, or they've got staff on lunch breaks. Calling at 9 a.m. didn't work as the store owners were generally doing their morning setup of the store and organizing themselves for the day. However, we did find the perfect period. The period between 9:45 a.m. and 11:45 a.m. was just that absolute perfect window of time. So that meant my clients had their 2 hours sales calls done early in the day, and they could concentrate on less important tasks in the afternoon. And this comes back to the time management that we were just talking about, which is making sure that you diarize time for sales within your day. Um, this might be to find new customers. It might be to touch base with existing customers or to follow up on leads. When I try and diarize sales time for my clients, often they'll say to me, "Well, I make a sale when the phone rings." That's true. That's business coming into you, but you also want to diarize the time where you actively go out and look for sales as well. All right, we'll move on to looking at more specific ways now to increase your profit. One of the fastest, most easiest ways is also one that small business owners never really find the time or the energy to get around to doing, and it's reducing your expenses. So, when was the last time you looked at your bank account closely? Have you signed up for anything that's no longer valuable or important to you? A gym membership, obviously, is one of those things that often we sign up for and we don't use. Have you checked your premium insurance premiums and your bank fees lately? Have you called your bank and asked for better rates on your credit cards? I did this at the end of last year, and Citibank reduced my interest rate from 13.8% down to 7.99%. So that was quite a significant interest saving, and all I did was ask. There was no battles there at all. I just simply picked up the phone and asked for a reduction. So set yourself a budget for your expenses by looking at your last year's profit and loss statement. It should be really easy to identify the expenses as they're usually listed as expenses on your P&L. In the first year or two of your business, we often keep a super tight rein on spending. But as the years go on and profit starts to increase, we get a little bit more lazy about where or what we spend our money on. Often we think that making a reduction will be so small that it won't be worth it. So we don't bother making the time to sit down and look at our expenses or call the people that could help us get a reduction in our expenses. But if you could reduce expenses by, say, 15% and save yourself a couple of $1,000s a year, then why wouldn't you do it? And that couple of $1,000s a year that you have in additional profit could be used to invest in your marketing to bring more customers. It could be a holiday for you. There's many places where I'm sure you could find in your business to spend a couple of $1,000s. Just remember that small efforts over multiple areas of your business can be really effective in creating some additional profit there. This one's quite a scary one for a lot of people, and it's increasing your prices. Increasing prices obviously can be scary, but if you offer great service and a quality product, then you will only lose price driven customers. And a lot of the time, we don't want those highly price driven customers anyway. One of the biggest mistakes I see small business owners make is that they assume that their customers are 100% price driven, and they may not be. It may be your service, it may be your location, it could be your product mix that's important to them. The psychology behind why people buy is really interesting. I'm not going to get into it today because you'll have me ranting on for an hour about it. But within that psychology, just remember that the decision on price, whether or not someone's going to purchase from your business, often price is the fifth factor in that buying decision. So often a person buys because they have, a logical or an emotional need that you're able to fulfill for them. If you're in a business that has the potential to save someone time, then you really need to capitalize on that. Everyone's busy. A lot of people are looking for solutions to make their lives easier. A great example of this is a business I worked with that offers printing solutions. He will do all of the running around for you. He'll find the best price and the best quality combination for your print needs. Initially, he found it hard because he wanted to be the cheapest in town. But what he found after being in business for a year was that that's not actually what his customers were using his business for. They wanted to get a good deal, as everybody does, and they wanted a quality product. But more than that, they were looking to outsource a chunk of their workload. They needed someone who was going to take the task of organizing things like mass newsletter drops or complete store signage fit outs, and someone who'd do it from start to finish for them, because for his customers, time was a lot more important than money was. Here's one that makes a lot of people very nervous as well, but I guarantee you it works. Look at your current customer base. What type of customer sits in the bottom 20% of income producing customers? Often you'll find that they're the most needy, they're often the ones that complain the most. And now look at your top 20% and have a think about how you could drop the bottom 20% and replicate the top 20%. This comes back to target marketing, which we'll cover in another webinar. But if you can identify your top 20% of customers, you're already on the right track to being able to market to more people like them. I did this exercise, another coach did this exercise with an accounting firm. And this was a really interesting example of how this works. Their business coach, the accounting firm's business coach, suggested that the accounting firm sell off the bottom 20% of their clients to another firm, as they were the low income producing clients. And they also happened to be the ones that were really slow in paying. They were always late with required paperwork. They were always asking questions. And because the bottom 20% only used the accountant's services once a year to have their tax done, they had no real inclination to pay any of the bills until they were ready for tax time the following year. So he had people on his debtors list that had been there for 200 to 300 days. Obviously, that impacts cash flow quite significantly. So selling the bottom 20% of his business, the bottom 20% of his customer base, may have cost him about $30,000 per annum in accounting fees, but it freed up time to look for bigger clients. And another interesting point here is that the accountant had a goal of making $150 per hour. The smaller clients were taking far longer to service, and they were much lower in profit. So when he did figure out how much they were making him, he found out that it was only those customers were only generating about $37 per hour. So that's a profit loss of $113 per hour, which is quite significant. All right, moving on. Sometimes in your business, you need to take a step backwards and downsize before you can take a step forwards to grow. So think about an arrow. To propel an arrow forward, you need to pull it back first. Unless, of course, you chuck it and then it doesn't really go very far. So think about that motion every time you're thinking about potentially dumping that bottom 20% of your clients. Think about that arrow. Think about pulling back in order to propel yourself forward. Now I want to move on to the 5 by 5 by 5 rule that I use with my clients. So you're getting a real insider tip here. Have a look at your profit and loss statement from last year and calculate the difference that you would see in your profit if you increased your price by 5%, you decreased your expenses by 5%, and you increased your sales by 5%. They're all really small changes. And if the 5% scares you and you think that that's too high, then give yourself a goal or a benchmark of trying the same exercise with maybe 2 or 3%. This is an exercise that when you're doing your annual planning, which I hope everybody does, but I know most probably don't, you should be doing this exercise because not only are you going to slowly increase your profit in quite a passive way, you'll also always be ensuring that your prices are rising, which many small businesses don't do. Everything around us increases in price annually. Our food increases in price, our petrol increases, our medical costs increase. So I'm not sure why small businesses feel so nervous about increasing their prices. I've worked with businesses that have not increased prices for over 10 years, which is really quite crazy. I'll give you an example now. This is not a huge business I'm talking about either. This is a business with a $200,000 turnover per annum, so sales of $200,000. We increased the prices. Obviously, this is a client of mine. We increased their prices by 5%, which resulted in an extra 10,000 per year in income. And they did lose a few customers by raising the prices by 5%. But when we looked at it, the customers that they lost were at the bottom of the pile. The majority said nothing, and there were a very few, or there were a select few of customers who actually said that they still thought that the prices were too cheap, which was really interesting and very positive feedback. We then decreased the expenses in the business by 4.5%. We tried for 5, but we didn't quite make the mark. A lot of their debt was sitting on credit cards, so obviously that was the first place we started. We also renegotiated some supplier costs as this business had grown dramatically over 3 years, and to a couple of suppliers, and this business was their key account. So it was well worth their while for the supplier to work with them and try and give them that 5% discount. And then we marketed to the right customers, which they hadn't been doing. They'd been blanket marketing to everybody. When we marketed to the right customers, which was their target market, and we increased their customer base by 4.2%. And that's an additional 4.2% in income or revenue, which is obviously, once again, it's really significant. So when you add up that it was a $200,000 business and it had very little profit, they just found themselves an extra $43,800 in profit per annum. That's absolutely massive. And we didn't do any one significant thing to the business. We made, a whole heap of small changes across different areas of the business. And all of those small changes came together with a resulting profit increase of $43,800. So as you can imagine, she's a pretty happy client. Businesses that offer a menu of products or a whole different range of products can use simple techniques to improve your overall profitability. This involves reviewing your sales and your profit margins periodically and dividing products into 4 categories. You've got products that are high percentage of sales and they're high profit margin. So obviously those products you want to nurture. You've got high percentage of sales but low profit margin. So you want to consider if it's possible to put a price increase or examine how you could cut costs to increase the profit margin on those products or do a combination of both. You've got low percentage of sales but high profit margin. So ask yourself why the sales on that high profit margin product or service is, and consider if a sales push would help you increase the sales of those products. And then you've got low percentage of sales and low profit margin. We want to eliminate those where possible. Obviously, you want to take into account any possible effects before you make the decisions. An example of that is you may have a low profit making product, but it may bring other business in. As long as you understand where each of your products sits in that matrix and you make sure you're always marketing towards your high profit items, then you're going to increase your profit at the end of the year. You want to promote every product or service that you offer. So, this is about gaining more profit from the customers that you already have. You're not spending money going and finding new customers, you're utilizing the ones that already exist within your business. So, it should be a bit of a no brainer to small businesses, but I still find that it's not. Many small businesses are a bit shy about promoting every service and profit product that they offer. If you want to quickly increase your products, then this is a really easy and cheap way to do that. Often customers only remember you for the one product or the one service that they purchased from you initially. So you've got to make sure that you're informing them about the other things that you offer within your business. I want to look at ways that you can increase the average spend of your customers. So once again, we're just looking at the customers you've already got. Calculate how much additional profit you could gain from each customer who purchased from you over a year. I'm going to give you an example of this. I did this with a hairdressing salon that offered no additional products to their customers. All they did was whatever the customer asked for, they provided that service and they didn't offer the customer anything additional. A lot of their customers didn't know that for $15 they could get a treatment. So, by offering a $15 treatment to each customer, they increase the profit without doing anything else. All that is a question. Would you like to have a treatment today? Not every customer obviously took up the offer or wanted to purchase the hair treatment, but we did find that 50% did. Now that's a pretty good conversion when you're getting 50% of people answering yes to a simple question like, would you like a hair treatment? Because the hairdressing salon serviced approximately 90 customers per week. We had 18 of them on average taking the treatment of the people that had been asked. And the treatment had a profit of $9. So that was an extra $405 in revenue per week, or an extra $21,000 in revenue over the year. And that was just by asking the question. And they didn't actually ask the question to every customer that came in. They only asked, probably less than half of the customers that came in. So if they had have asked 100% of the customers, chances are they would have doubled what they were making in additional revenue per week. The other thing we want to look at is increasing the frequency of sale to your customers. So we want to encourage your customers to purchase more often by adding a bit of additional customer service to your business. And it's nothing huge or scary. It's just another easy way to increase your profit. And you can do things like remind customers when they might need to purchase your products again. So I'll give you another example here. A graphic design business that I've worked with a few years ago did this by asking customers how often they ordered business cards in any one year. Many didn't bother to offer business cards until the last lot that they had run out, and then it could take them, a month to get around to ordering the business cards, and then another couple of weeks to actually get the business cards. So there's a 6-week period there where the graphic designer is basically losing money because the clients aren't giving out business cards. So by sending the clients a quick email once every 3 months to ask the customers how many business cards they had and whether or not they needed a reprint, they managed to increase their profit by $32,000 per year. Now that's by sending out an email 4 times a year. If you can't find a couple of hours 4 times a year to send out an email that could generate $32,000 in additional profit, then you've probably got to be asking yourself, why you're in business. And the other thing is look at your best customers. Focus your marketing and your support budget on your most profitable customers. By limiting spending on your less profitable customers, you increase the impact of your budget and you'll increase your overall profitability as well. So determine what types of customers result in higher profits and proactively look for similar customers because they make up your target market. All right, I've run through as quickly as I can because I realized that we were running 15 minutes late, and I do want to make sure that We finish on time today. So, if anybody has any quick questions, you can type them into the message box. I also would encourage you to shoot me an email if you've got any questions about the content that we've covered. As you leave the webinar today, I'd really love if you take a couple of minutes to complete a quick survey that I'm hoping is automated and will pop up for you. I just want to make sure that you're getting the information that's relevant for you in any free webinars that I hold. So let me know what your thoughts are. And I want to say a huge thank you for joining me today in this webinar. If you want to join me on my frog eating expedition from May 1st, then make sure you head over to my Facebook page. I'll include the link when I send out the link for you to watch the video again. And I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thank you, everyone.